Once upon a time, deep in the heart of a dense forest, there lived a kind woodcutter with his 2 children, Hansel and Gretel. Their mother had passed away when they were babies, and the woodcutter had worked tirelessly to raise them alone. Life was not easy, but they found happiness in each other's company. One day, the woodcutter decided to marry again. His new wife came from a wealthy family and disliked living in their small cottage deep in the woods. She thought it was far too isolated and that they should be living in a grander home. Worst of all, she didn't want to care for the children, especially since food was scarce. "We can't survive this winter with them," she argued one evening. "There is barely enough food for 2, let alone 4. If we don't get rid of those children, we'll all starve." The woodcutter hesitated, torn between his love for his children and his wife's insistence. "I can't abandon my children. They are everything I have," he said, but his wife was firm. "This is the only way. If we don't leave them in the forest, we'll all perish." In the end, she convinced him. That night, Hansel and Gretel overheard their stepmother's plan. "What will we do, Hansel?" Gretel asked, fear creeping into her voice. "Don't worry, Gretel. I have a plan," Hansel reassured her. The next morning, Hansel secretly gathered small white pebbles from the forest as he walked along. He stuffed them in his pockets, knowing they would help them find their way. When dawn broke, the stepmother woke them early. "Come, children. We're going to take a little walk in the woods. Your father needs rest today." As they walked deeper into the forest, Hansel casually dropped the pebbles behind him, leaving a trail to follow. Eventually, they reached a small clearing where their stepmother built a tiny fire. "Sit by the fire and rest, my dear ones," she said. "I'm just going to collect some firewood. I'll be back shortly." But Hansel and Gretel sat quietly, watching her disappear into the trees. As the hours passed, the sun began to set. "Hansel, she's not coming back, is she?" Gretel asked. "It's okay," Hansel replied confidently. "I left a trail of pebbles. We can follow them home." Sure enough, the children followed the shining trail of pebbles and made their way back to their father's house. Their father was overjoyed to see them, but their stepmother was furious. 3 days later, their stepmother tried again. This time, she locked the door to prevent Hansel from gathering any pebbles. "What will we do now, Hansel?" Gretel asked, worried. The next morning, their stepmother woke them early once more. "Get up, children. We're taking a new path today. Your father needs more rest," she said with a forced smile. Hansel knew something was amiss, but he remained calm. But without the pebbles to mark the way, Hansel had to come up with another plan. At breakfast, he grabbed a piece of bread from the table and tucked it into his bag. "I'll leave a trail with this bread." "Don't worry," Hansel said to Gretel. "We'll find our way back." Their stepmother led them even deeper into the forest this time. The trees grew taller, their shadows grew darker, and the sounds of the forest seemed louder than before. Hansel walked behind, carefully breaking the bread into small pieces and dropping them along the way. Eventually, they reached a place where their stepmother stopped. "Wait here, children. I'll be right back," she said. But of course, she never returned. Hansel stood up and walked back along the path they had come. He searched for the breadcrumbs he had dropped, but instead of the familiar trail, there was nothing. "Oh no, where are they?" He looked around and suddenly noticed little birds fluttering in the trees, pecking at the ground where their breadcrumb trail should have been. The birds must have eaten them. Now we are really lost. What will we do? The forest around them grew even darker and colder. This time, they were truly lost with no path to guide them home. Hansel and Gretel wandered through the woods for days, tired and hungry, until they spotted a beautiful white bird singing in a clearing. "Look, Hansel, that bird is so pretty," Gretel exclaimed. The bird flew ahead, and the children followed it until they reached the most amazing house they had ever seen. Its walls were made of soft chocolate. The roof was constructed of gingerbread and yellow candy canes, with colorful sugar drops shining like jewels around the edges. Large birds perched by the door, as if inviting them to take a bite. "Gretel, it's made of cinnamon," Hansel shouted. "Look at the chocolate walls and the sugar drops. Let's try a piece." Just as they began to nibble, a voice called out from the door. "Crunch and munch. What do I see? Who dares to feast without asking me?" The door creaked open, revealing an old woman. "Oh, poor children. Come inside. I'll give you a nice lunch," she called. The inside of the house wasn't as magical as the outside. It was dark and gloomy, but the children were so hungry that they didn't care. The old woman treated them to a feast and offered soft beds for them to sleep in. The next morning, Hansel woke up to find himself locked in a cage, but the sweet old woman was not what she seemed. Her warm smile disappeared, transforming into the wicked grin of a witch. The candy house was her trap, designed to catch children, fatten them up, and turn them into her next meal. Ha 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 ha. You'll make a delicious lunch once you're nice and plump, the witch laughed. And you, little girl, cook for him. Day after day, Gretel cooked while Hansel tricked the witch. Each time she checked if he was fat enough, he held out a thin bone instead of his finger. Is he still too skinny? Oh well, I'm getting tired of waiting. Gretel, heat the oven, the witch commanded one day. Gretel's heart raced as she ran, the witch's excitement growing. With a wicked smile, the witch said her favorite words. Crunch and munch. What do I see? Hansel, my dear, you'll be my lunch. But Gretel had a plan. She carefully opened the oven door and peered inside. The fire crackled and roared, glowing brightly. Then, she closed the door again, pretending to struggle with it. The fire seems ready, but the door is stuck, the witch muttered. I can't seem to open it all the way. Growing impatient, the witch narrowed her eyes and stepped closer. Lazy girl, do I have to do everything myself? She snapped. The witch moved toward the oven, determined to see the fire for herself. At that moment, Gretel saw her chance. With all her strength, she pushed the witch into the oven and slammed the door shut. As the witch tumbled into the oven, she tried to use her magical powers to escape. However, her magic fizzled out, and she transformed into a shimmering volcano of light. She leapt from the oven's window, her voice now soft and humble. I'm sorry, children. I've never met anyone as brave and clever as you before. I promise, I will never harm anyone again. To make up for what I've done, let me fix this. With a gentle flick of her glowing wings, the witch unlocked Hansel's cage. I'm free! He cried in relief. The witch then floated toward a dark corner of the house. With a flash of light, a hidden door creaked open, revealing a room filled with treasures. There were piles of shining gold coins, colorful jewels that sparkled like roses, and large chests overflowing with riches. Wow, this is like a fairy tale treasure, Hansel exclaimed. Take whatever you want, the witch said. You've earned it. And here, in the center of the room, on a small table, lay a glowing red crystal. It softly illuminated the space like magic. This treasure will guide you out of the forest and lead you safely home. Use it wisely, little ones. With the glowing crystal in Gretel's hand, the children followed its magical light through the forest. Eventually, they reached their cottage. Their father rushed out to greet them, tears of joy streaming down his face. My children, you're alive. I sent that terrible woman away, but I thought I had lost you forever. The children showed him the treasure, and the family never went hungry again. From that day on, Hansel, Gretel, and their father lived happily ever after. Moral of the story: be cautious with strangers, for not all who seem kind have good intentions. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories and adventures. If you enjoyed this magical story of love, transformation, and hope, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more enchanting tales from around the world. What story would you like to hear next? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep believing in the magic of love and transformation. And remember, true beauty comes from within.